This play is called Our Town. It was written by Thornton Wilde. The name of our town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just over the line from Massachusetts. Latitude, 42 degrees, 40 minutes. Longitude, 70 degrees, 37 minutes. This first act shows a day in our town. The date is May 7th, 1901, just before dawn. Just about. The sky is beginning to show some streaks of color in the east there, back of our mountain. The morning star always gets wonderful bright the minute before it has to go. Well, now I'll show you how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Cutting across on the left there is the railroad tracks. Across the tracks is Polish Town. You know, foreign people come to work in the mill, a couple of Canuck families, and the Catholic Church. The Congregational Church is over there. Presbyterians across the street. Methodist and Unitarian are over there. Baptist is down in the hollow by the river. Next to the post office there is the town hall. The jail's in the basement. Brian once made a speech from those steps there. All along Main Street, there are a row of stores, horse blocks and pigeon posts in front of them. First automobile is going to come along in about 5 years. Belonged to Banker Cartwright, our town's richest citizen. Lives in the big white house up there on the hill. Here's the grocery store and Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody in town manages to look into these stores once a day. And this is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. And this is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, peas, beans, hollyhock, heliotrope, and a lot of burdock. In those days, our newspapers came out twice a week. The Grover's Corner Sentinel. And this is Editor Webb's house. And this is Mrs. Webb's garden. Just like Mrs. Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflowers too. Right here is a big butternut tree. Nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it, as far as we know. Earliest dates on the tombstones up in the cemetery say 1670. There's Rovers and Cartwrights and Gibbses and Herseys. Same names that are around here now. So, it's early morning. The only lights on in town are in a house over by the tracks, where a Polish mother's just had twins. And in the Kroll house, where Joe Jr. is getting ready to deliver the morning paper. And at the depot, where Shorty Hawkins is about ready to flag the 5:45 for Boston. There she is. Naturally, out in the country all around, there have been lights on for some time, what with milking and so on. But town folks sleep late. So, it's morning. There's Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street, coming back from that baby case. And here's his wife, come downstairs to get breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. New hospital's named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, a long time ago, in fact. She went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there, pneumonia, but her body was brought back here. She's up in the cemetery now, in with the whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys. She was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everything. Here's Miss Webb, coming downstairs to get her breakfast. And that's Doc Gibbs. Got the call to go to Polish Town at 1:30 this morning. And here comes Joe Kroll, delivering Mr. Webb's Sentinel.
Morning, Doc.
Well, morning, Joe.
You want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it.
Anybody been sick, Doc?
No, a pair of twins over in Polish Town. Joe, I hear Teacher Miss Foster's going to get married.
Yes, sir, to a fellow over in Concord.
Well, I declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course it ain't none of my business, but I think if a person starts out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
It's fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's going to rain.
Well, what's it telling you today? Going to rain?
No, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Me if I make a mistake?
No, sir.
I want to tell you something about that boy, Joe Kroll there. Joe was awful bright. Graduated from high school here, head of his class. So he got a scholarship to Boston Tech. Well, MIT that is. Graduated head of his class from there too. It was all written up in the Boston papers at the time. Going to be a great engineer, Joe was. But the war broke out and he died in France. Yes, sir, all of that education for nothing. What business he had picking a quarrel with the Germans, we can't make out to this day. But it all seemed perfectly clear to us at the time.
Giddy up, Bessie. What's the matter with you?
Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk.
Morning, Doc.
Come on, Howie.
Somebody sick?
No, pair of twins over Mrs. Koslowski.
Twins, eh? Sounds getting big every year.
Going to rain, Howie.
No, fine day. It'll burn through. Come on, Bessie.
Well, hello, Bessie. How old is she now?
Going on 17. She's all mixed up about the route. Well, ever since the Lockwork's taking the quart of milk every day, he's wanting to leave my boy just the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip. Morning, Miss Gibbs.
Good morning, Howie.
Doc's coming down the street.
Is he? Seems like all late today.
Yeah, somewhere on the supper this morning. Don't know what it was. Doc, Howie,
Children, time to get up.
come on, Bessie.
George, Rebecca. Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, let her clear. Easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple of hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Well, Mrs. Wentworth's coming at 11. Suppose I know what it's about, too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep, Frank Gibbs. I do wish you'd go away someplace and take a rest. I think it would do you some good.
Emily, time to get up. Wally, 7 o'clock.
I declare, you've got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to chop me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about is that baseball. George! Rebecca, you'll be late for school. George!
Joe, it's bookshop.
Yes, Pa.
Don't you hear your mother calling you?
Wally, you'll be late for school.
I guess I'll go upstairs and take 40 wings.
Wally, you wash yourself through or I'll come up and do it for you.
Mom, what skirt shall I wear?
Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and needs his rest. I washed and ironed your blue one for you special.
Oh, Mom, I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up with you.
Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Mama, George is throwing soap at me.
I'll come up and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
We've got a mill in our town too. Hear it? It makes blankets. Cartwrights own it, and it's brung them a fortune.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth, that's for sure. Wally, put away your book.
Oh, Mom, by 10 o'clock I gotta know all about Canada.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at the table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents a week is enough for a boy of your age.
Oh, Mom, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what we spend it on.
Well, I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She's got more than a dollar.
I've been saving up gradually.
Well, dear, I think it's a good idea to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you You know what I love most in the world, do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
There's the first bell, I gotta go.
Now walk fast, but you don't have to run. Wally, pull your pants up to the knee.
Tell Mrs. Foster I sent her my best congratulations. Will you remember that?
Yes, Mom.
You look very nice, Rebecca. Pick up your feet. Now you go away. What's the matter with you? Fight, fight, fight. That's all you do. And where did you come from? You don't belong to me. Oh, don't be scared. Nobody's going to hurt you. Good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know I'd go to choir rehearsal tonight.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't do that on Stay on the Key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these beans.
Here, let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
Oh yeah? I decided to put up 40 quarts if it killed me. Children say they hate them, but I notice they can get them down all winter.
Now, Myrtle Webb, I've got to tell you something, because if I don't tell someone, I'll burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
Myrtle, did one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. At first, I thought he was a patient wanting to see the doctor. And he wormed his way in my parlor. And Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Whitworth's highboy. Why, as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
He did. That old thing. Why, it was so big I didn't know where to put it. And I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know? $350? What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, it's always been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, it sounds crazy, I suppose. But for years, I've been promising myself that if I ever got the chance...
How's the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat around the bush a little and said that if I ever got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me.
And what did he say?
Oh, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he says, it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing around Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years, he takes a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anyone, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
It's a fact. The doctor's never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing it all out like we was gonna buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man's really serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And you'll get to see Paris all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only seems to me that once in your life before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't speak in English and don't even want to.
Thank you very much, ladies. Now we'll skip a few hours, but first, we want a little more information about our town. Sort of a scientific account, you might say. So I've asked Professor Willard of our State University to sketch in a few details about our past history here. Professor Willard, may I introduce Professor Willard of our State University. Just a few brief notes. Thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pliocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in the world. We're very proud of that here. Of course, there's some more recent outcroppings. Sandstone showing through a shelf of Devonian basalt, and some vestiges of Mesozoic shale, but these are comparatively new. Perhaps 200 or 300 million years. Some highly interesting fossils have been found 2 miles north of the Peckham Farm in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. These may be seen at the university at any time. That is, at any reasonable time. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation, mean precipitation, etc.?
Afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a few words on the history of man here, you know.
Oh, anthropological data.
Yes.
Early Amerindian stock, Cotahatchee tribes, no evidence before the 10th century of this era, now entirely disappeared. All possible traces in 3 families. Migration in the early part of the 17th century of English brachycephalic blue-eyed stock. Since then, some Slav and Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor Willard.
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Oh, just a moment, Professor.
The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, leaving a total of 3,149. Mortality, birth rates, constant. By McPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Thank you very much, Professor Willard. We're all very much obliged to you.
Not at all, sir, not at all.
Now the political and social report. Editor Webb. Oh, Mr. Webb.
He'll be here in just a minute. He just cut his hand while eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is publisher and editor of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males voted at the age of 21, women voted direct. We're low middle class, sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist, the rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town if you ask me. A little better behaved than most, but probably a lot duller. But our young folk here seem to like it well enough. 90% of them graduated from high school, settled right down here to live, even after they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to ask Editor Webb any questions about our town?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you would call much. Saturday nights, the farm hands meet over at Ellery Green. I'll stable and holler some. We have 1 or 2 town drunks, but they're always having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. So no, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing here in the home, except in the medicine chest. Right good for a snake bite. Always was.
Isn't there anyone in town?
Come forward, will you? Where we can all hear you. Now, what did you want to ask?
Isn't there anyone in town where social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, well, yes. Well, everybody is. Something terrible. It seems like everybody's always arguing over who's rich and who's poor.
Why don't you do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting like everybody else for a way the diligent and sensible can rise to the top, and the lazy and quarrelsome sink to the bottom. Meantime, we do all we can to help those who can't help themselves, and those who can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. And not in the sense you mean. But come to think of it, there are a couple of girls who play the piano at high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, you're right. There ain't much. But maybe this is the place to tell you that we do have a lot of pleasures of the kind. We like the sun coming up over the mountains in the morning, and we all notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them. The change in the seasons. Yes, we all know about that. Those other things, you're right, there isn't much. Oh, Robinson Crusoe in the Bible. And Handel's Largo, we all know about that. And Whistler's Mother. But those are just about as far as we go.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we'll get back to the town. It's 2 o'clock. All 2,642 have had their lunches, and all the dishes have been washed. The children have gone back to school. There's a buzzing and a humming from the school buildings. Only a few buggies on Main Street, horses dozing at the hitching posts. There's an early afternoon calm about the town. You all remember what it's like. Dr. Gibbs is in his office, tapping people and making them say ah. And Mr. Webb is cutting his lawn over there. Guess it's later than I thought. The children are already out of school.
So what did you think about the English test?
It was awful. I think
Oh, can you come over after school?
I can't, Lois. I gotta go home and help my mother. I promised.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Hey, hi. So the English test was...
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Oh, Papa, you're terrible. One minute you tell me to stand up straight, then the next you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Well, golly, I've never got a kiss from such a great lady before.
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Forrest.
You go play in the field, young man. You got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
I'm awful sorry. Yeah. Oh, hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class today.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran wanted me to talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
You know, from my window up there, I can just see the top of your head. Nights when you're doing your homework.
Why, can you?
You certainly do stick to it. I don't know how you can sit still that long. I guess you must like school.
I figure it's just something a person has to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Hey, Emily, what do you think we might work up some kind of telegraph from my window to yours? And maybe at nights you could give me a hint or two about some of those algebra problems. Oh, not the answer or anything. You know, just some little hint.
Oh, I think hints are allowed. So, if you get stuck, George, you whistle to me, and I'll give you some hints.
You're just naturally bright, I guess, Emily.
I figure it's just the way a person's born.
Yeah, but I want to be a farmer. And my Uncle Luke says that when I'm old enough, I can go work on his farm. And if I'm any good at it, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, I best be getting out to the baseball field. Thanks for the talk, Emily. Good afternoon, Mrs. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come and help me string these beans for winter. Why, George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old would George be?
Oh, I don't know.
Let's see. He must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm going to make speeches all my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try and get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, can I ask you a question? Serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Of course you are. Both my children got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Oh, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
Now, I've already told you, yes. That's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face, and I've never heard of such foolishness.
Mona, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town next to Mamie Cartwright.
But Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody, to get people interested in me?
Now, Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. You are pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come on along now and bring that bowl with you.
Oh, Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you very much, ladies. Now, I have to interrupt again here. You see, I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have begun building a bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go all the way to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say. And they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone. for people 1,000 years from now to dig up. They're putting in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in all this because some scientific fellows have found a way of painting all that reading matter with a kind of glue, silicate glue, that'll make it keep 1,000, 2,000 years. They're putting in a Bible and a copy of the Constitution of the United States and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and all we know about him is the name of some kings and copies of wheat contracts and sales of slaves. Yes, every night those families sat down to supper, and the father came home from his work, and the smoke went up the chimney. Same as here. Even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of the people is what we can piece together out of the joking poems and comedies they wrote for the theaters back then. So I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, so people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh flight. See what I mean? So, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up and in our marrying, and in our living, and in our dying. Well, now we'll get back to Grover's Corners. It's evening. You can hear choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are at home, finishing up their schoolwork. The day's running down like a tired clock.
All right, now try it again. And remember, ladies, music came into the world to give pleasure. Now, once again.
Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in Christian love, the fellowship of kindred.
So good! Now look, everybody! Get it out of your heads that music's only good when it's loud! You leave loudness to the Methodists. You couldn't beat him at it even if you tried. Now once again.
Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in Christian love, the fellowship of kindred hearts is like to that above.
Emily,
Hello.
did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third.
Why, yes, George. That's the easiest of them all.
Well, I don't see it. Do you think you could, give me a hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer's in yards.
In yards? How do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, in square yards.
Yes, George, don't you see?
Yeah.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Oh, I see. Square yards of wallpaper. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. My, isn't the moonlight terrible? And choir practice going on. I think if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way to Contaccook. Hear it?
Huh. What do you know?
Well, I guess I better get back and try to work.
Good night, Emily.
Good night, George.
George, can you come down a minute?
Yes, Pa.
Well, that's better. But it ain't no miracle. Oh, before I forget. How many of you gonna be able to come in Tuesday afternoon and sing for Fred Hersey's wedding?
I can't.
Oh, come on, show your hands, come on. Oh, that's nice. That'll be right nice. Now once again, art thou weary? Art thou languid? It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk.
George, how old are you?
Well, me, I'm 16, almost 17.
And what do you want to do after school, sir?
Well, you know, Pa, I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing, will you? Get up early and milk and feed the stock. And you'll be able to hoe and hay all day.
Sure I will, Pa. What do you mean?
George, I was in my office today and I heard a funny sound. What do you think it was? It was your mother chopping wood. There you see your mother, getting up early, cooking meals all day, washing and ironing, and she tells us to go out back and chop wood. I suppose she got tired of asking you, decided it was easy to do it herself. And you eat her meals, then wear the clothes she keeps nice for you, and run off and play baseball. You see some kind of hired girl we keep around the house but don't like very much. You knew all I had to do was call it to your attention. Here's a handkerchief, son. George, I decided to raise your allowance 25 cents a week. Not for chopping wood for your mother because that's sort of a present that you give her. Because you're getting older now, and I'm sure you must find things to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Let's see. Tomorrow's payday. Yes, you can count it. I suppose Rebecca wants them all too. I wonder what's keeping your mother. Choir practice was never as late as this before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't know why she's in that old choir anyway. She hasn't got any more of a voice than an old crow. And traipsing around the streets at this hour of the night. Just about time you're tired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Oh, good night, Mr. Foster. Good night, Martha.
Good night. I'll tell Mr. Webb. I'm sure he'll want to put it in the paper.
My, it's late.
Oh, good night, Irma.
Good night. Real nice choir practice, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Myrtle Webb, look at that moon, would you? Potato weather for sure.
Well, naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of the others, but now that we're alone, really, it's the worst scandal there ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Stimpson.
Now, Luella.
But you have the organist of a church drink and drunk year after year.
Luella.
Julia, you know he was drunk tonight.
Now, Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the affairs he's had. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson chooses to keep him on in his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen here so often. My, I hate to go to bed at a night like this. Gracious, I'd better hurry. Those children will be up till all hours. Good night, Julia.
Good night, Myrtle. You can get home safe, can't you, Luella?
I can see it's as bright as day. See Mr. Soames scowling now. You'd think we'd been to a dance the way the men folk carry on. Good night, Julia.
Good night, Luella.
See you on Sunday.
See you then. Well, we had a real nice time.
You're late enough.
Oh, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you stop me on the corner, gossip with lots of hens.
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out and smell my heliotrope in the moonlight. Come on. Isn't it wonderful? And what did you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read as usual. So tell me, what were the girls gossiping about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there was something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson was far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. Frank, how will that end? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I suppose I know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anybody in this town. Some people just aren't made for small town life. But there's nothing we can do about it. Just leave it alone. Get in.
No, not yet. I'm worried about you, Frank.
Well, what are you worried about?
I think it's my duty to see to it that you get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
It's getting late. The first thing you know, you'll catch a cold. Oh, I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. You'll have your wood chopped, for a while anyway. No, stop getting upstairs.
Oh dear, there's always so many things to pick up, it seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front doors at night. All those people up that part of town do.
They're all getting cityfied. That's the trouble with them. They haven't got anything fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one of us at this window.
Well, let me look just a minute.
Well, go use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think? Do you? I think the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer and nearer, the men that sit up all night with telescopes would see it first, and then they'd tell us. It'd be in all the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
"9:30 in Grover's Corners. Most of the lights in town are out. There's Constable Warren checking a few doors on Main Street, and here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed."
Good evening, Bill. Evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a mood.
Yeah. All quiet tonight? Simon Simpson is rolling around a little. Just saw his wife move out to head for him, so I looked the other way. There he is now.
Good evening, Simon. Most of town seems to have settled down for the night. Good evening. Town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. I guess we better do the same. Can I walk a ways with you? Good night.
I don't know how that's going to end, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's seen a peck of trouble. One thing after the other. Oh, Bill. If you see my boy smoking cigarettes, just give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you.
Oh, I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Leastways, not more than 2 or 3 a year.
Well, I hope not. Good night.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, Papa, it's me.
Now, why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep yet, Papa. The moonlight's so wonderful. And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Yes. Haven't any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles? Papa, no.
Don't let your mother catch you. Good night.
Good night, Papa.
I never told you about that letter Jane Crawford got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope, the address was like this. It said, Jane Crawford, Crawford Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, United States of America.
So, what's so funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. United States of America, continent of North America, the Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
Well, what do you know?
Yep, and the postman brought it just the same.
Well, what do you know?
"3 years have gone by. The sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountain a bit more, and the rains brought down some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences. and a number of people who thought they were right young and spry have noticed they can't bound up a flight of stairs like they used to, without their hearts fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Yes, the mountain got bit away a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water have passed by the mill. And here and there, a new home was set up under a roof. Most everyone in the world gets married. You know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Most everybody climbs into their grave married. The first act was called the daily life. This act is called love and marriage. So, it's 3 years later. It's 1904. It's July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time most of our young folk jump up and get married. As soon as they finish their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, looks like they suddenly feel themselves fit to get married. It's morning again. Only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden and Mrs. Webb's here, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines, drenched. All yesterday, up along Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown along. I don't know now. May begin again any minute. There's the 5:10 train to Boston, and there's Mrs. Gibbs and Miss Webb. Come downstairs to make breakfast, just as if it were an ordinary day. Now, I don't have to point out to the women in the audience that these two ladies they see before them, both have cooked 3 meals a day, one of them for 20 years and the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They raised 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and never had a nervous breakdown. Never thought themselves hard-used either. It's like what one of them Middle West poets said. You've got to love life to have life. You've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Come on, Bessie, giddy out!
Here's Howie Newsom and Bessie delivering the milk, and there's Cy Kroll delivering the newspaper like his brother before.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Si. Anything in the paper ought to know?
Nothing much, except we're losing about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corner's ever had.
Yeah, I reckon he is.
Now, all he'll be doing is pitching hay.
Whoa, Bessie. I think something talking to mine, too.
He could hit, too, and run the bases.
Yeah, mighty fine ball player.
I don't see how he could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you have, Howie?
Couldn't tell you, Si. Never had no talent that way.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Bill. You're up early.
Seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. River's been rising all night.
Morning, Mr. Warren.
Si Kroll's here all broke up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir, that's the way it goes. In '84, we had a player, Si, even George Gibbs couldn't have touched him. Named Hank Todd. Went down to Maine and became a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how's the weather seem to you?
Oh, tain't bad. I think maybe it'll clear up, though. Bill?
Howie.
Morning, Miss Gibbs.
Morning, Howie.
Too bad about the weather. The rain's so heavy, I was hoping it may clear up.
Certainly hope it will.
How much did you want today?
Well, I'm going to have a house full of relations, Howie. Looks to me like I'll need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
3 of milk and 2 of cream. My wife says to tell you as I hope they'll be happy. Now the will.
Thanks a lot, Howie. Tell your wife I hope she gets to the wedding.
Maybe she can. She'll be there if she can. Morning, Miss Webb.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Newsom. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, sir, and 2 of cream.
Will it start raining again, Howie?
I was just telling Miss Gibbs I was hoping to make her up. My wife says to tell you special as I hope they'll be happy, Miss Webb. Now the will.
Thank you, and thank Mrs. Newsom. And we're counting on seeing them at the church.
Yes, Miss Webb. Hope to get there all right. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Oh, Frank, don't say another word. I feel like crying every minute.
The groom's up shaving himself. Only there ain't too much to shave. Every now and then he says, I do to the mirror. Don't sound convincing to me.
I declare I don't know how they'll get along. I've arranged his clothes and seen to it his feet are dry and he's got warm things on. They're too young, Frank. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch his death of cold within a week.
I remember my wedding morning, Julia.
Oh, don't start that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scariest young fellow in the state of New Hampshire. Well, I thought I made a mistake for sure. When I saw you come down that aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. Only trouble was I'd never seen you before. There I was in the Congregational Church, marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt, Frank Gibbs? Weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I've made you something.
Why, Julia Hurst, French toast?
It ain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
Yeah. I get a shock every time I think of George setting out to be a family man. That great gangling thing. I tell you, Julia, there's nothing so terrifying in the world as a son. The relation of a father and son was the damnedest, awkwardest
Well,
thing.
mother and daughter's no picnic, let me tell you.
They will have their troubles, I suppose. But that's none of our business. Everybody has a right to their own troubles.
Yeah, people were meant to live 2 by 2 in this world. Take natural to be lonesome.
You want to know one of the things I was most scared of when I married you?
Oh, go along with you.
I was afraid we'd have material for conversation more than last us a few weeks. I thought we'd run out and eat our meals in silence, and that's a fact. You and I have been conversing for over 20 years now, without any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. Take very choice, but I always find something to say. Did you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
No. Only day of the year she hasn't been managing everybody's business up there. She's hiding in her room. I got the idea she's crying.
Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca! Rebecca, come get your breakfast!
Good morning, everybody. Only 4 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
George, put on your galoshes. It's raining torrents.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
You don't leave this house without you're prepared for it.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers. But while you're in my house, you'll live wisely, thank you. Perhaps Mrs. Weathers used to call us Sentinel. Here, take a cup of coffee first.
I'll be back in a minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
George, unless you frighten me. Now, George, I hate to say it. You can stand in a minute out of the rain, but really, you understand. I can't ask you in.
Well, why not?
Why, George? You know as well as I do that the groom can't see his bride on his wedding day. Not until he sees her in the church.
Oh, that's just a superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in superstition, George.
Millions have followed it, George. Now, don't you be the first to fly in the face of custom.
Well, how's Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep?
No wonder. We will up till all hours sewing and packing. Now, George, I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down here with Mr. Webb and drink this cup of coffee. I'll run upstairs and see that she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon, too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
I'm fine, Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, what common sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, George, on a girl's wedding day, her head's full of, oh, I don't know, clothes. One thing or the other. Don't you think that's it?
Well, I never really thought of that.
Well, the girl's apt to be a mite nervous on her wedding day.
You know, I wish a guy could get married without all that marching up and down.
Every man that has ever lived has felt like that, George. But it ain't been no use. Well, it's the women folk who have built up weddings, my boy. For a while now, the women have it all on their own. Man looks pretty small at a wedding. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
Well, you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Yes. Oh, yes. Now, don't get me wrong, George. Marriage is a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing. Now, don't you forget that.
No, sir. Well, how old were you when you got married, Mr. Webb?
Well, see, I'd been away to college. And so I'd taken a little time to get settled down, but Miss Webb, she wasn't much older than Emily is. Age hasn't got much to do with it, George, compared with, well, other things.
Well, what were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, I don't know. Was I going to say something? You know, George, I was remembering the other night the advice my father gave to me when I got married. He said, Charles, he said, start right off showing them who's boss. Best thing to do is give an order with something. Even if it don't make much sense, just so she'll learn to obey it. Then he says, if anything about her irritates you, conversation or anything, just get right up and leave the house. Well, that'll make it clear to her. Oh, and then he said, never let her know how much money you have. Never.
Mr. Webb, I can't just...
So I took the opposite of his advice. And I've been a happy man ever since. Well, so let that be a lesson to you, George. Never take advice from anybody on personal matters. Are you gonna have chickens on your farm, George?
What?
Are you gonna have chickens on your farm?
Oh, yes. Uncle Luke's never gone in for it much, but I've been figuring reading up on it. And maybe...
See, a book came into my office the other day, George, on the philo system of raising chickens. I wish you'd read it. I'm thinking of beginning in it in a way myself. You see, I'm gonna put this incubator in the cellar, and in the incubator...
Charles Webb, are you talking about that incubator again? I thought you two'd be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boy some good advice, I'll go upstairs.
Now, George, Emily's got to come down and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay her eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, Myrtle, I guess you forgot about that older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the caveman, no bridegroom should ever see his father-in-law on the day of his wedding, or near it. Now, you remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Now, I have to interrupt again here. You see, we're kind of interested in how all this began. This wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how such big things begin. You know how it is. You're 21 or 22, and you make a few decisions, then whoosh, you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years, and that white-haired lady by your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such big things begin? George and Emily are going to show you now the conversation they had when they first knew that, as the saying goes, they were meant for one another. But before they do that, I want you to remember what it was like when you were very young, particularly the days when you were first in love. You were like a person sleepwalking, and you didn't quite see the street you were walking in, and you didn't quite hear all that was said to you. You were just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that? Now, they'll be coming out of high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the senior class, and as this is June, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily's just been elected secretary and treasurer. Ah, there they are, coming down Main Street now.
So maybe you'd like to come over to my house and study?
I can't, Louise. I gotta go home. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Oh, Ernestine, can you come over tonight and do Latin?
I'll have to ask my mother.
Isn't that Cicero the worst thing? Well, tell your mother you have to.
Okay,
Goodbye.
goodbye.
Goodbye, Helen.
Bye, Emily.
Hey, Emily, can I carry your books home for you?
Well, thank you. It really isn't far.
That's okay. Come on. Oh, excuse me just a minute, would you? Say, Bob, if I'm a little late to practice, go ahead and start without me. And give Herb some Long Islands.
Sure thing, George.
I'm sure glad you were elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you so mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
Well, you've been treating me so funnily.
Well, since you asked me, I might as well say it right out. George, oh, goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye, Mrs. Corcoran. Well, what is it?
I don't like this whole change that's come over you in the last year. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I've just got to tell the truth and shame the devil.
What change? Well, what do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot, and I used to watch you while you did everything, because we've been friends so long. But then, you began spending all your time at baseball, and you never stopped to speak to anybody anymore. Not to really speak. Not even to your own family, you didn't. And George, it's a fact. Ever since you've been elected captain, you've got awful stuck up and conceited, and all the girls say so. And it hurts me to hear him say it. But I gotta agree with him a little, because it's true.
Well, gosh, Emily, I never thought that sort of thing could happen to me. I guess it's hard for a fellow not to have some faults creep up on his character.
I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Well, I don't think it's possible, Emily, to be perfect.
Well, my father is. And as far as I can see, your father is. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I think it should be the other way around. That men aren't naturally good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be perfect as a man. Because, well, we girls are more nervous. No, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily?
Now I can see that it's not the truth at all. And I suddenly feel that it's not important anyways.
Emily, would you like to have an ice cream soda with me before you go home?
Yes, thank you. I would.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Slocum.
Good afternoon, George. Emily?
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? Why, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
Well, she got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. That hardware store wagon almost ran over her. Everybody says Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Here, you take a good drink of water, Emily. You look all shook up. I tell you, you gotta look both ways before crossing Main Street these days. Gets worse every year. Ah, well. What'll you have?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate.
No, Emily. Have an ice cream soda with me. We'll have 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are 225 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking with you. State inspector was in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in these automobiles. Best thing to do is just stay home. Why, I can remember when dogs would lie in the middle of Main Street all day long, and not a thing had come along to disturb them. Oh, well, there you are. Oh, yes, Mrs. Ellis, be with you in a minute. What can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
No, Emily, don't think about that. I'm celebrating our elections, and you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I've got a friend that tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
George, please don't think of that. It's not true.
No, Emily, you stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me the way you did. But I'm going to change so quick. Well, you bet I'm going to change. And Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What?
Next year, if I go away to State Agricultural College, do you think you would write me a letter every once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems like being away 3 years, you'd get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after a while. After all, Grover's Corners isn't very important when you think of all New Hampshire, but I think it's a very nice town.
Oh, I don't think the day would come when I wouldn't want to know everything about our town. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make the letters interesting.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to State Agricultural College. And most of them say it's just a waste of time, because you can get all that information from the pamphlets that the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting pretty old, and he's ready for me to take over the farm, well, tomorrow, if I could.
My.
And like you said, being gone all that time in other places, and meeting other people, well, gosh, if anything like that could happen to me, I don't want to go away. I bet new people aren't any better than old ones. Probably almost never are. Emily, I think you're about as good a friend as I've got. And I don't need to go and meet the people in other towns.
But George, maybe it's very important for you to go and learn all those things about cattle judging and soils and all of that. Of course, I don't know.
No, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pa tonight.
But George, why do you have to decide right now? It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character. What you said was right, but there was one thing wrong with it. That's where you said that I wasn't noticing people. And you, for instance, well, you say you were watching me when I did everything. Well, I was doing the same about you. Well, sure, I always thought of you as, well, one of the chief people I thought about. I was always seeing where you were sitting on the bleachers and who you were sitting with. And for the past 3 days now, I've tried to walk home with you from school. But something's always gotten in the way. Like yesterday, I stood over at that wall waiting for you, and you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
Oh, George, life's awful funny. How could I have known
Emily,
that?
I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to go to State Agricultural College next year. I feel that once you've got a friend who you're really fond of, and I mean who's fond of you too, enough to be interested in your character, well, I think that's just as important as college is, and even more so. And that's what I think.
I think that's very important too.
Emily?
Yes, George?
If I try really hard and I make a big change, do you think that maybe you and I could, you know...
I already am, and I always have been.
So I guess this is an important talk we've been having now.
Yes.
There you go. Oh, wait just a minute, Emily. Mr. Morgan, I'm going to have to go home to get the money to pay for these.
What's that? George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Yes, but I've got my reasons. Here, take my gold watch until I come back.
That's all right, George. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George. Not a day over. Got all over your shock, Emily.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Well, now we'll get on to the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We can't get them all into one wedding, naturally, but especially not a wedding in Grover's Corners, where weddings are mighty short in play. In this play, I take the role of the minister. That gives me the right to say a few things more. Yes, for a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. Like Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago, people were meant to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding. The people are a bit young, but they come from a good state, and they chose right. The real hero of this scene isn't on stage at all, and you all know what that is. Like what one of them European fellas said, every child born to the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know she's interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality too. Maybe she's trying to make another good governor for New Hampshire. That's what Emily hopes. And let's not forget the other witnesses of this wedding. The ancestors. Millions of them. Most set out to live 2 by 2. Millions of them. Well, that's my sermon. It wasn't very long anyway.
suppose there's nothing to cry about. This morning at breakfast, it just came over me. There was Emily sitting at the table eating a breakfast as she's done for 17 years. And she's going out of my house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, I can't eat another mouthful. And then she put her head down and she cried. I've got to say it. There's something downright cruel about sending girls out into marriages like that. It's cruel, I know. But I just couldn't get myself to say anything. I went into it as blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. There they come.
What a game! Oh, that was so great! What a hit, man! There's George! Hey! Oh, George! Hey! Oh, hey, George! Oh, look at it, fellas. He's scared to death.
Oh, don't look so innocent, you.
Oh, yeah.
We know what you're thinking.
Oh, yeah. Go turn to me, George. Yo, these are you.
All right. That'll do. That's enough of that.
See you later, George. See you. Yeah.
There used to be an awful lot of that sort of thing in weddings of the old days. Rome and later. We're more civilized now, so they say. George, take this woman, Emily, to be
Perfectly lovely wedding. Loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love a good wedding, don't you? Oh, doesn't she make a lovely bride?
or till death do us part.
I do.
And do you, Emily, take this man, George.
I don't know that I've seen such a lovely wedding. But I always cry. I don't know what it is, but I always cry. I just like to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
Death do us part.
I do.
The ring. I've married 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. I suppose I do. And Mary's End. Millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting.
Aren't they a lovely couple? I'm sure they'll be happy. You know what I always say? Happiness, that's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
That's all for this act, folks. 15-minute intermission. This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer, 1913. Gradual changes in Hope Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rare. Farmers coming into town now in Fords. Most everybody locks their doors now at night. Ain't been any burglars in town yet, but everybody's heard about it. You'd be surprised, though. On the whole, things don't change much around here. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop, a windy hilltop. Lots of sky, lots of clouds. Often lots of sun and moon and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon, and you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are. Up there by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And if you go way up, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock's right here. And all around it lie these towns. Jaffrey and North Jaffrey, and Peterborough and Dublin. And there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. Yes, beautiful spot up here. Mountain laurel and lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Woodlawn in Brooklyn, when they might pass the same time up here in New Hampshire. Over here are the old stones, 1660 to 1670. Strong-minded people that come a long ways to be independent. Some of people walk around, laughing at the funny names on the tombstones. It don't do any harm. And genealogists come up from Boston, get paid by city people for looking up their ancestors. They want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution and of the Mayflower. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Over there are some Civil War veterans, iron flags on their gravestones. New Hampshire boys had a notion the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends. The United States of America. United States of America. And they went and died about it. This here is the new part of the cemetery. There's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs, and Mr. Stimson, organist at the Congregational Church. and Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so much, remember? Oh, and plenty of others. Here's Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst while on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow has sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives to this hill. And bedtimes, sunny days, rainy days, snow. We all know how it is. A lot of thoughts come up here night and day, but there's no post office. Now, there are some things we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal. It ain't houses, it ain't names, it ain't earth, and ain't even the stars. We all know in our bones that something is eternal. And that something has to do with human beings. Greatest people that ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years. Yet you'd be surprised how often people are letting go of that little fact. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. You know, the dead don't stay interested in us living people for very long. Gradually, they let go hold of the earth, and the ambitions they had, and the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get weaned away from the earth. That's the way I put it, weaned away. Yes, they sit here while the earth part of them burns away, burns out, and all that time, they slowly get indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something they feel is coming. Something important and great. Aren't they waiting for that eternal part in them to come out? Clear. Some of the things they're going to say maybe will hurt your feelings. That's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser. All those terribly important things kind of grow pale around here. And what's left then? What's left when memory's gone? And your identity, Mrs. Smith. Oh, here are some living people. That's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a new-made grave. And here comes Sam Craig, Grover's Corners boy who left town to go out west.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you? I'm Sam Craig. Oh, gracious sakes alive, of all people. Should have known you'd be back for the funeral, though. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, I've been away over 12 years. I'm in business out in Buffalo now, but I was in the East when I got news of my cousin's death, so I thought I'd combine things a little. Come back and see the old home. You look well.
Yes, I can't complain. Very sad our journey here today, Samuel.
Yes.
Yes, as I always say, I hate to supervise when a young person's been taken. Should be here any minute now. I had to come down early. My son's supervising at the home.
Old Farmer McCarthy. I used to do chores for him after school. He had lumbago.
Yes, we brought Farmer McCarthy up here a number of years ago now.
And this is my Aunt Julia. I'd forgotten she... Of course.
Yes. Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago about this time. Today is another bad blow point.
That's my sister Carrie's boy, Sam Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Do they choose their own verses much, Joe?
No, not usual. Most of the bereaved pick a verse.
Well, it doesn't sound like my Aunt Julia. Well, there aren't many of those Hersey sisters left now, I suppose. Now, let me see. I wanted to look at my fathers and mothers.
Over here with the Craigs on Avenue F.
He was the organist at church, wasn't he? Drank a lot, we used to say.
Nobody was supposed to know about it. He'd seen a peck of trouble and took his own life.
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got around. He chose his own epitaph. You can see it here. It ain't a verse exactly.
Why, it's just some notes of music. What is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was written up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, you didn't know? She had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. It was her second, though. There's a boy about 4 years old.
And the grave's going to be over here.
Yes, there isn't much more room over here among the Gibbses, so they're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over here on Avenue B. You'll have to excuse me now. I can see they're coming.
Who is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Well, I declare, the road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth. I'd forgotten all that. I wasn't live ball. And wonderful.
Wonderful, was it?
Now remember, Simon.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember Emily reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls ever graduated from high school. I heard Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called at them at their farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful farm.
It's on the same road we lived on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right smart farm.
I always liked that hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn.
Hello. Hello, Emily.
Hello, Miss Gibbs.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily.
Hello. It's raining.
Yes, dear. They'll be gone soon. Just rest yourself.
It seems thousands and thousands of years since Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. I wish I'd been here longer. I don't like being new here. Oh, how do you do, Mr. Stimson?
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs, George and I have made that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and the new long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought that out of the money you left us.
I did?
Yes. Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs? The legacy you left us. Why, it was over $350.
Yes. Yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on this drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs. And so that it never sinks below a certain mark they have there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me. But it's a lovely farm. Live people don't understand, do they?
No, dear. Not very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. My little boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. Oh, Mr. Carter, my little boy is spending the day at your house.
Is he?
Yes, He loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford too. Never gives any trouble. I don't drive though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away? Of being one of them? How long does it take?
Just wait. Be patient.
I know. Look, it's finished. They're leaving. Shh. Look, Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? Mother Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark live persons are. Look at him. I loved him so. From morning till night, that's all they are. Troubled.
Little cooler than it was.
Yeah, that rain's cooled it off a little.
Those northeast winds always do the same thing, don't they? If it ain't rain, it's a 3-day blow.
But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. Back there. Into living. I feel it. I know it. Why, just for a minute, I was thinking about the farm. And suddenly I was there. And my baby was on my lap as plain as day.
Yes, of course you can.
I can go back and live all those days over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go back there and live again.
Yes, some have tried, but they soon come back here.
Emily, don't. It's not what you'd think it'd be. But I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day that I first knew that I loved George. No. Why is that painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes.
And as you watch, you see the thing that they down there never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterward.
But is that painful? Why?
That isn't the only reason you should, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that. To look only to what is ahead, and be ready for what is ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? It's all I know. It's all I had. Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't. But it's something I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No! At least choose an unimportant day. The least important day of your life. It will be important enough.
Then it can't be since I was married, or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right. It's February 11th, 1899. A Tuesday. Do you want any special time of day?
I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. You remember it had been snowing for several days, but stopped the night before and they'd begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
There's Main Street. And there's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it. And there's the livery stable.
Yes, it's 1899. This is 14 years ago.
Oh, this is the town I loved as a little girl. Look, there's the white fence that used to be around our house. I'd forgotten that. I loved it so. Are they inside?
Yes, your mother will be coming down in a minute to make breakfast.
Will she?
You remember? Your father had been away for several days. He came back on the early morning train.
No.
He'd been back to make a speech at his old college in Western New York, at Clinton.
There's Howie Newsom. And there's our policeman. died.
Whoa, Bessie. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Howie.
Well, you're up early.
Been rescuing a party that darn near froze to death down by Polish Nar. Got drunk from out the snowdrift. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
There's Joe Kroll.
Morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howard.
Morning, Joe.
Children, Wally, Emily, time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come and dress by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Good morning, Mr. Newsom.
Good morning, Miss Webb.
It's cold.
Yup, 10 below my bar, Miss Webb.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Come on, Bessie.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear, that's all. I laid it out for you special on the dresser there. If it were a snake, it'd bite you.
Yes. Yes.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Went back to my old college in New York State. Have been any trouble around here?
I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fellow. Darn near froze to death he was.
We must get it in the paper.
Which wasn't much.
Good morning, Mother.
How did it go, Charles?
Fine. I told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Yes. I can't think of anything that's happened special. It's been right cold. Howie Newsom says it's 10 below over at his barn.
Well, it's colder than that at Hamilton College. The students' ears are calling. It ain't Christian. The paper have any mistakes in it?
None that I noticed. Now, Charles, don't forget. Today's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her?
It has to be right here, boy. Now, where's my girl? Well, where's my birthday girl?
Don't interrupt her now, Charles. You can see her at breakfast. She's slow enough as it is. Hurry up, children. 7 o'clock. No, I don't want to call you again.
I can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I love you all. Everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Can I go in? Good morning, Mama.
Well, now, dear, a very happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. There are surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't. I can't.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow and be a good, strong girl. That and the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie. And I reckon you can guess who brought the postcard out. George Gibbs. He must have come over in the cold pretty early. Right nice of him.
Oh, George. I'd forgotten that. Oh.
Chew that bacon good and slow. It'll help keep you warm on a cold day.
Mama, just for a minute, will you look at me as though you really saw me? Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother, Mama. Mama, I married George Gibbs. Mama, Wally's dead too. His appendix burst on a camping trip to Crawford Notch. We felt just terrible about it, don't you remember? But now, just for a minute, we're all together. Just for a minute, let's be happy. Let's look at one another.
That and the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you'd like it.
And this is from you. Why, Mama, it's lovely, and it's just what I wanted.
I hoped you'd like it. Hunted all over. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send it all the way to Boston. Wally has something for you, too. He made it in manual training class, and he's very proud of it. Be sure to make a big fuss about it. Your father has a surprise for you also. I'm not sure what it is myself. Shh. Here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't. I can't go on. It goes so fast. We didn't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize. So all of that was going on. We never noticed. Take me back, up the hill to my grave. But first, wait, one more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama and Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking and my butternut tree. Mama's sunflowers and food and coffee and new iron dresses and hot baths and sleeping and waking up. Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful for anyone to realize you. Do any human beings ever realize life while they're living? Every minute?
No. Saints and poets, maybe. They do some.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
No. I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are. Just blind people.
It's clearing up. The stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Simpson, I should have listened to them.
Yes. Yes, now you know. Now you know what it was to be alive. To go about in a cloud of ignorance, to go up and down, trampling upon the feelings of those around you. To spend and waste time as though you had 1,000,000 years, to be always at the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. Yes, that's the happy life you wanted to go back to, ignorance and blindness.
That ain't the whole truth, and you know it, Simon Stinson. Look at that one star, Emily. I forget its name.
My boy Joe was a sailor. He knew them all. He'd sit on the porch evenings and tell them all by name. Yes, sir. Wonderful.
A star's mighty good company.
Yes, yes, 'tis.
There's one of them coming.
That's funny. Ain't no time for envy here.
Goodness sakes.
Mother Gibbs. It's George.
Shh. Just rest yourself.
It's George.
And my Joel knew the stars. He used to say it took millions of years for that little speck of light to get down to Earth. It's hard for our body to believe, but that's what he used to say. Millions of years.
Goodness, that ain't no way to behave.
He ought to be home. Mother Gibbs?
Yes, Emily?
They don't understand, do they?
No, dear. They don't understand.
Most everybody's sleeping in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins at the depot has just watched the Albany train go by. And at the livery stable, someone's setting up late and talking. Yes, it's clearing up. The stars are doing their old crisscross in the skies. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, They seem to think there's no other living beings up there. Just chalk. Or fire. Only this one is straining away. Straining away to make something of itself. The strain's so great, every 16 hours, everyone sets down to get a rest. "11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. Everybody's resting in Grover's Corners. Tomorrow's going to be another day. You get a good rest too. Good night."